10th century Arab historian called the gate by two names, a name for each arch.
The Bible says there is a gate that will remain shut until the return of the king. For 500 years, it has stayed exactly that way, sealed, silent, waiting. But now, witnesses are reporting movement, not loud, not obvious, but enough to raise one terrifying question. What if the gate is no longer waiting? What if the moment we've been warned about has already begun? The Eastern Gate sits quietly on the old walls of Jerusalem. If you walked past it today, you might not notice anything unusual at first. It looks like part of the ancient city, worn, aged, almost forgotten. But look closer. You'll see two large arches, completely sealed with stone. Not damaged, not broken, sealed on purpose. This gate faces directly east. Across from it lies the Kidron Valley, and just beyond that, the Mount of Olives, a straight line. From the mountain, through the valley, to the gate, and into the heart of Jerusalem. This alignment is not random. For thousands of years, this exact path has held deep meaning. It is a route tied to kings, to prophecy, and to something many believe has already happened once before. Unlike the other gates in Jerusalem, this one is different. It is older, more mysterious, and completely closed. No one passes through it. No crowds gather at its entrance. No daily movement. Just silence. And yet, this silent structure is one of the most watched places in the world, because to many it is not just a gate, it is a marker, a signal, a line between what has already happened and what is still to come. Historians see stone and structure, tourists see an old wall, but others see something else entirely. They see a waiting point, a place that has not been forgotten, only paused. And if that pause is ending, then everything connected to it may be closer than anyone expected. To understand why this gate matters, you have to see it through more than one lens, because this is not just a structure of stone. It is the place claimed by three of the world's largest religions. In Judaism, this gate carries a powerful expectation. For generations, it has been believed that the Messiah will come and enter Jerusalem through this very gate, not from the west, not from the north, from the east, through a gate that has remained sealed, waiting for that exact moment. In Christianity, the story continues. Many believe that Jesus once walked this path, that he entered Jerusalem from the Mount of Olives, passing through this same eastern side. And not only that he will return the same way, the same direction, the same path, the same gate. But this time, not in humility, in glory. And then there is Islam. While the gate itself is not directly named in the same way, its location holds deep importance. It stands near one of the most sacred areas in the city, a place tied to judgment, to the end of days, to what comes after this life. So here we have one gate, three perspectives, and one shared idea that this place is not ordinary. It is connected to something final, something decisive, something that has not happened yet, but is expected to. And when different beliefs across centuries all point to the same location, you have to ask, why this gate? And why has it remained closed until now? In the year 1541, something unusual happened. The Ottoman Empire controlled Jerusalem at the time. Its ruler, Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent, was known for rebuilding the city's walls. Strong walls, defensive walls. But one decision stood out above the rest. He ordered the Eastern Gate to be sealed, not repaired, not reinforced, sealed shut. Large stones were placed into the arches, layer by layer, closing it completely. And from that moment on, no one would pass through it again. What makes this strange is that there was no clear reason, no invasion, no immediate threat, no record explaining why such a permanent decision was made. But there are theories. One of the most widely discussed goes beyond politics. It points to prophecy. At the time, the belief that a Messiah would enter through this gate was already well known. It wasn't hidden, it wasn't new. So some believe the Sultan acted out of caution, not against an army, but against a future event. And then something even more unusual happened. A cemetery was placed directly in front of the gate. Rows of graves right at the entrance. In certain traditions, this would prevent a holy figure from passing through. It created not just a physical barrier, but a spiritual one. Stone behind, graves in front, a gate sealed and guarded by silence. It looked final, but here's the part that raises questions. What if this act, meant to stop something, actually ensured it would happen exactly as written? Long before the gate was sealed, there were words written about it, not by kings, not by builders, but by prophets. One of the most striking comes from the book of Ezekiel. It describes a gate facing east, a gate that would be shut, closed to everyone, because according to the text, the presence of God had passed through it, and once that happened, it was not to be opened again, not by man, only by something greater. At the time those words were written, the gate wasn't sealed yet. It was open, active, used, and yet the prophecy spoke of a future where it would stand closed, waiting. Centuries later, it happened. The gate was sealed, exactly as described. But the prophecy doesn't stop there. Other passages speak of a return, a moment when a king would come from the east, cross the same path, and enter again. The direction matters. The location matters. The gate matters. It forms a pattern: departure and return, silence and arrival. So when people look at the Eastern Gate today, they're not just seeing stone. They're seeing something that lines up with words written thousands of years ago. And that raises a question that is hard to ignore. If the first part has already happened, if the gate is sealed, then what about the next part? What is it waiting for, and how close is that moment? For centuries, nothing changed. The gate remained sealed, untouched, still. Through wars, empires, time itself, it did not move. But recently, people have started to notice small details, not dramatic, not obvious, but enough to make them pause. Hairline cracks appearing in parts of the stone, lines that were not there before, or at least not noticed. Dust slipping out from between the sealed blocks, falling quietly, even when the air is still. And then the reports become stranger. Some who have stood near the gate speak of subtle vibrations, not strong enough to cause alarm, but enough to feel, like something shifting beneath the surface. Others describe faint sounds, low, dull, almost like pressure building behind something that has not moved in centuries. No official confirmation, no clear explanation, just scattered accounts, easy to dismiss, and many do. They point to natural causes. Old stone weakens, ground shifts. Jerusalem sits in a region where small tremors are not unusual. All of that is true. But here's what keeps the conversation going: the timing. Because these reports are not happening in isolation. They are appearing at a moment when more people are already watching, already asking questions, already looking for signs. So when even the smallest change shows up, it feels bigger than it should. And that leads to a deeper question. Are we seeing ordinary decay or the first signs of something that has been waiting for centuries? Not everyone sees this the same way. For some, there is nothing mysterious happening at all.
ancient stone cracks, mortar weakens, structures shift over time. Jerusalem sits in a region where small earthquakes happen. The ground moves, the earth settles. So when people talk about cracks, dust, or vibrations, they see a simple explanation: time, nothing more. And from a scientific point of view, that makes sense. It's measurable, predictable, understandable. But then there's another view, one that looks at the same details and sees something very different. Not random, not accidental, intentional. Because for those who study prophecy, timing is everything. And the idea that something tied to prophecy would begin to shift right when the world itself feels unstable doesn't feel like coincidence. It feels like alignment. So now there are two ways to look at the same moment. One says, this is normal, nothing is happening. The other says, this has happened before, just not like this. And here's where it gets difficult. Both sides can sound convincing. Both can explain what we see, but only one connects the present to something written long before it. So the real question is not just what is happening at the gate, but how you choose to see it. Because if this is just erosion, then the story ends here. But if it's not, then this could be the beginning of something much bigger than anyone expected. Step back for a moment. Look at the bigger picture. Not just the gate, but everything around it. The Mount of Olives stands to the east. The Kidron Valley stretches between, and the eastern gate sits directly in line, like a path, a straight path. This exact route appears again and again in history and in scripture. A movement from the east toward Jerusalem. It is the same direction tied to moments people still talk about today. A king arriving, a crowd watching, a city waiting. And then later, a departure from the same area back toward the east. The pattern is clear. Arrival, departure, return. Not random events, a sequence, and the gate sits right in the middle of it. Closed, like a pause in the story. Now connect that to what people are seeing today. The gate showing signs of change, the world growing more unstable, more people paying attention. Individually, these things might not mean much, but together, they begin to form a pattern, and patterns are hard to ignore. Because once you see one, you start to notice it everywhere. The same direction, the same location, the same expectation. It's like pieces of a puzzle that don't seem important on their own until they start fitting together. And when they do, you're left with a thought that's difficult to shake. What if this isn't just history repeating, but a pattern reaching its final step? Look at the world right now, not just one place, but everywhere. Conflicts rising, nations divided, uncertainty growing. Things feel different, not stable, not settled. And for many, this isn't just politics or coincidence. It feels like something building, something approaching. For decades, people have pointed to certain moments as signs. One of the biggest was in 1948, when Israel became a nation again, after nearly 2,000 years. To some, that was just history, but to others, it was a signal, a starting point, a shift. And since then, the conversation has only grown louder. More events, more tension, more questions. And now, the focus returns to something ancient, a gate, still sealed, but no longer ignored. Because when global events begin to align with long-held expectations, people start to wonder if the timeline is moving forward, not slowly, but quickly. And that's where the idea becomes difficult to dismiss. What if the signs people have talked about for generations are not scattered events, but connected ones? What if they are not random, but part of something building toward a single moment? Because if that's true, then the question is no longer if something will happen, but when. And if the gate, the one that was never supposed to open, is beginning to change, then maybe the timeline isn't far away anymore. Maybe it's already unfolding. For centuries, this gate has stood closed, not broken, not forgotten, just waiting. And maybe that's the part people overlook. It hasn't been abandoned. It has been preserved, held in place, as if its purpose was never finished. But here's where the focus shifts, away from the gate and towards something closer. Because if this moment is real, if the signs are aligning, then this is no longer just about a place in Jerusalem. It becomes personal, not about stone, but about readiness. Because the same message tied to that gate has always carried a second meaning, a door. Not in a wall, but in the heart. One that can stay closed or be opened. And unlike the gate in Jerusalem, that choice is not controlled by time or prophecy, but by you. So the question is no longer just, is the gate moving? It becomes something deeper. If something is approaching, if the moment people have spoken about for generations is drawing near, then are you ready for it? Because history suggests one thing clearly. When that gate opens, it won't be a quiet moment. It won't be gradual. It won't wait. And if what people are seeing now really is the beginning, then the silence that has lasted for centuries may already be coming to an end. But the real question is, when it finally happens, will the world recognize it or realize it too late?